What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Shiv here. Alright, so today we're going to be taking a look at RDU's standard suggestions. Alright, so as you guys know, standard is coming, and they've mentioned that they're going to be changing some of the staple cards that we've all known and love and blah 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 blah, because, you know, maybe they're just a little too good. Maybe they're just a little too powerful. Alright, yeah, sure, why not? Alright, so throughout the history of Hearthstone, I know myself, I've commented many times, wow, this card's broken as fuck. How the fuck could this exist? The first card we're looking at right now is a prime example of that shit. And I've made suggestions for it. Matter of fact, me and Nox have done that quite frequently. And he does it even more so now. And yeah, so when it comes to balanced design, I kind of have a little bit of a knowledge base on that, so this ought to be really interesting. Alright, so let's get this started. By the way, you can find this article up on the g2esports.com page. I will make sure to put a link in the description. Alright, so first up we have is Innervate, because fuck you Druids. No, kidding. Alright, so we all know what Innervate does now, so I'm not even going to bother explaining that. Alright, so his version, the next card you play this turn costs 2 less. Okay, so this could kind of like stop those little scenarios where people are trying to ramp out, say like a Ragnaros on turn 3 and stuff of that nature. Okay, so that kind of puts that to shit. It also stops people from going for that little bit of extra lethality with their hero power after a combo. Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm okay with this. I mean, it really doesn't change things overly too much. I mean, Innervate's kind of there to fill in those gaps on the curve to allow you to play a more top-heavy deck. Which, trust me, when you don't get Innervate, oh boy, do you fucking feel it. Oh boy, do you fucking feel it. So, yeah, I think this would be a good change. Alright, next up is Savage Roar. Changing it to 5 mana and increasing the amount it does. Okay, so, combo-wise now is an 11 mana play. Emperor Thorazan, obviously. Innervate, still applicable here. Okay, so let's say, just going off the Innervate thing. Alright, so with Innervate, bam, that's 4 mana for the little fucking trees. And then, okay, so it's still a turn 9 play. Still a turn 9 play. And now you're talking about, let's see, that would be 2 plus 3 is 5, so that's 15 plus 3. You're talking about taking it from 14 to 18? How exactly is that good? Yes, it does lessen the consistency of it, and it would be kind of punishing to run 2 of these. It stops a lot of the more aggressive decks from exploiting the shit out of Savage Roar, but I don't think this is the way to do that. I mean, I would take it up to 4 and cost it, still make it only do +2, because 18 versus 14, that's a world of fucking difference, alright? Ask anybody who's ever played up against Control Warrior, that's a world of fucking difference. Alright. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but I understand the logic behind it, and I do agree something does need to be done with Savage Roar, but I'm not sure that's it. Alright, Keeper of the Grove, turning it into a 2/3. So basically it's a slightly better version and more expensive version of both Ironbeak Owl and or Flame Juggler. I get why he's doing this, because it's a rather difficult minion to deal with on curve, but I'm not sure this is the way to go. One of the cool things I've always found with Keeper of the Grove is when you're playing a non-meta deck, playing this down to remove something and then following it up with something that gives it taunt gives you a really nice defensive option. Not a very good play, but it's a good defensive option. So doing this change, well, yeah, it's still doable. It's just nowhere near as good. You basically make a fucking Chillwind Yeti taunt at that point for 6 mana, and yeah, at that point, meh. I don't know. I kind of am on the fence on it. I agree it should be changed to some degree, but this just feels, I think that if you use the damage, right, it becomes a 2/3. If you use the silence, it should stay at 2/4. Though that would make it almost always a 2/4. Alright. Ancient of Lore, 7 mana for a 5/5 is how it is now with those abilities. And he wants to change it to a 4/4. Wow. So let me ask you this. Would you still play this, or would you just instead add in another Azure Drake? I think I'd go with the Azure Drake, because at least the Azure Drake will have synergy with my swipe, where this... Not to mention the fact that now Priest can't kill it with a Shadow or Death. So yeah, that's... No, I'm not really feeling that. That's just like way too expensive for too shit of stats, to be perfectly honest. Alright, Ice Block. Alright, so his version of it, when your hero takes damage, become immune this turn. So... I don't really think this is good. I really don't. This pretty much, you know, takes a piss all over Freeze Mage. Don't get me wrong, Freeze Mage is a deck that is kind of annoying, but I don't think it deserves this kind of fucking smack in the face. It's already getting knocked to shit a bit by the loss of the Mad Scientist. That's going to hurt it a little bit, but not overly too much. But yeah, this does feel a little bit too punishing, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I don't know, man. This feels bad. This feels so bad, because... I mean, at that point, then, why... Yeah, no, I don't like this. As much as I'm trying to come up with a reason why it's justified, I really can't. Alright, so Flame Strike. Taking it up to 8 mana. I'm seeing a little pattern here starting to form, and I'm not really liking it too much. Basically, it's kind of punishing anything that can clear away tempo decks or aggro decks, like zoo-based decks. A lot of stuff here that punishes zoo, particularly, and he wants to change. I don't really like that too much. When you start making your design and balance decisions based on a preferential treatment towards one specific deck design over all others, I think that is kind of a bad idea. But, So yeah, Flame Strike. Alright, so there's only a couple decks that actually run Flame Strike. Freeze Mage being one of them, which, again, this is like the second little go fuck yourself to Freeze Mage we're seeing here. And the Echo Mage decks. Now, it is a tech option that I've seen Tempo Mages actually put in. I know Mech Mages were occasionally using it just to, in case they became behind on the board, they could easily catch back up. So yeah, but taking this to 8, I'm sorry, no. And here is why. This is a card that's specifically designed for control decks, almost entirely for control decks. By making it more expensive, what you're basically doing is you're increasing the power level of almost every single aggressive deck to build board over the control deck. Now, aggressive decks already have a lot of advantages going for them. I don't think you need to handcuff their opposition in order to justify them having an existence in the meta. This, again, change would destroy Freeze Mage, and would destroy Echo Mage, would destroy a lot of things. I mean, Echo Mage is already getting fucked over by Standard, so I mean, why? It makes no sense. I'm sorry, no, I don't like that. Alright, Preparation, no longer getting 3, instead it's going to be 2. This I do like, because God only knows, I hate on turn 4 watching them sprint to get everything they fucking need to basically kick the living shit out of me. Not to mention, I've seen this used to some really nasty effects to fuck with me on some other things. So, yeah, I'm okay with this change. Zero cast cards are generally overpowered in this game to begin with. Blade Fury, costing 1 mana more. Won't really change much, but I kind of agree. Rogues that use Blade Fury generally walk a very fine line when it comes to their mana. And the fact that many of them are using the Tomb Pillager right now means they're going to have that extra coin to pretty much guarantee they'll still be able to use this without much issue. What this will inevitably do is will lessen the amount of mana available for certain card combinations using Gadgetzan Auctioneer. I'm okay with this. Alright, Doomhammer, taking it up to 7 with an overload of 1, thus giving it an intrinsic value of 8 mana versus the 7 mana that it has now. Okay, so let's be honest. Fucking face rush aggro shaman is the most douchebag and unfun feeling in the world. True fact. However, Crackle is going out of the meta. But Doomhammer's still a powerful card. I kind of feel like this change is punishing to other deck designs more so than it would be punishing to the aggro decks. Yes, it would slow down the aggro decks a little bit, and you might actually be able to beat them. And I kind of agree with that. That would be a good thing. But I don't know if this is the change that needs to be made. I think this might be a little bit too much of a change. It really would, you know? I mean, if it was 5 mana and then, like, 4 overload, I'd be much more comfortable with that than 7 and 1. You know? Because at that point, you pretty much are just taking that whole deck design and flushing it down the toilet. And I don't think that's healthy for anybody. Alright, Lightning Storm. No, I said Lightning Storm. Alright, so he wants to lessen its range. He wants to actually take away the RNG that it had. This will never happen, alright? Because people have been asking for something like this for a long time. He also wants, because of that change, he also wants to lower the overload. Again, Tunnel Trog, you're depowering it some more, and I don't really like that. I don't think that's overly good. Don't get me wrong, I can't stand Face Shaman. Even though I play it on occasion, I do relatively good with it. But I still think that this is not a good, healthy change. One of the really fun things when you're watching a tournament and you're watching a Shaman play is when they get that luck RNG off of Lightning Storm. It creates drama, it creates a story, it creates a lot of fun. So for that reason alone, I disagree with changing that. Not to mention the fact that because that 3 has saved my ass more times than I can fucking count, and I'm not overly fond of getting rid of it. Again, this feels like another change in order to benefit zoo-type decks versus anything else, and I disagree with this line of thinking. Alright, Fire Elemental, taking it to only having 4 health, but basically keeping everything else the same. Yeah, I'm okay with this. I really am okay with this. I really am okay with this. Alright, I've always felt Fire Elemental had just a little too much value. I mean, when you add everything up, it comes out to a value of 14 for 6 mana. 14. That is literally like 2.1 value. Alright, so yeah. Taking this down to where it's now, it's still 13. Let's not fucking try to kid ourselves, but it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. And then it becomes like 2.05. Alright, yeah, alright. So next up is Blood Imp. Okay, so his change is basically to change the card completely around. Alright, first noticeable difference, it is a 1-2. Second noticeable difference, it's a battle cry, everybody gets a +1 health. Right. No. 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 And the reason why I'm saying no to this is because this, again, this is more shit to reward those zoo-based decks and to punish everybody else. I do not agree with that. I'm sorry, you can't do that. This would not be healthy for the meta in any way, shape, or form. There's a reason why Zoo is made the way it is and why they've done changes to specifically keep it within certain ranges. This would take it completely outside those ranges and would give it way too much fucking power. Alright. Leper Gnome. Basically turning it into a 1-1. Yeah, I'm okay with this. Because I'll be perfectly fucking honest with you. When I'm streaming and I'm playing an aggro deck and I have Leper Gnomes, I literally do a count of how much value I got off the Leper Gnome. It is not uncommon for him to get 8, 10, 12 damage worth of value. Alright? So, yeah, I think it's definitely time for him to get knocked down a peg or 2. I mean, seriously, he has 4. He's literally a 4.0 on my, value scale here. It's like 2 plus the 2 that's 4 damage worth. Got to account for. That's not even including his health, which technically brings him up to 5. All right. So yeah, knocking him down here basically takes him down to a 4, which I'm a little bit more comfortable with. It would be a lot easier to trade into and not have horrific things. I mean, how many times do we see this happen? Turn 1, Leper Gnome. Turn 2, Abusive Sergeant, Leper Gnome face. Alright, so automatically right there, Leper Gnome accounted for fucking 6 damage. He accounts for 20% of your opponent's health by turn 2. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. I don't give a fuck where you are. So I definitely agree that this change needs to happen. Of all the changes, I think this is probably the best one for the meta. Novice Engineer. He wants it to basically go back to being a 1-2. Then nobody would ever play fucking Loot Hoarder. True fact. That's really all I could say on it. I agree with him, but then nobody would ever play Loot Hoarder. Okay, Knife Juggler. Taking it down to a 2-2. I would agree with this a lot if it wasn't for certain cards like Northshire Cleric. You know, and the other issue I have with this is now Priest can steal it. Yeah. But I do like what he did with the effect, and I think the change to the effect is spot on. Whenever you play a minion from your hand, so Unleash the Hounds, go fuck yourself. Yeah. When you do it with a Murloc combination, guess what? You're only going to get it for the one Murloc. You're not going to get it for the spawned out Murloc as well. I like that change. I think that's actually a healthy change to the meta. It should be a card that, you know, you're sacrificing your hand advantage to get a temporary attack thing. So, yeah, I think it's a healthy change. All right, Ironbeak Owl going up to 3. I agree with this in principle, but if you're going to take this up to 3, it should really be a 2-2. It really should be a 2-2 at that point. Because then you look at the 1 mana up, the Spellbreaker. Yeah, Spellbreaker. He's a 4-3. Alright? A 4-3 versus a 2-1? Nobody would ever take Ironbeak. Oh, yeah, well, I mean, still cheaper, you could blah, blah, blah. No! No, he's got to come up to at least a 2-2 or a 2-3, to be perfectly honest with you. Oh, but he's a beast, Shiv. You can't overlook that. Oh, God, don't give me that bullshit. Beasts are some of the weakest fucking minions in this game, so no, fuck off. Their synergies, while kind of cool because of Kill Command, no. I definitely think this needs to come up to 2 if you're going to increase the cost of it. Alright, Big Game Hunter. Alright, so what's the change here? Oh, it only destroys dragons now. Oh, guess what, Ysera, you're done. So Big Game Hunter becomes the Ysera Nefarian Maligod Killer. That gives it some interesting range. You can use it to take out Azure Drakes, fucking Twilight Guardians. Yeah, lots of stuff there, guys. Is this a good change? I will say yes, just simply due to the fact that the reason why Big Game Hunter became so popular was because Dr. Boom. Well, Dr. Boom's going out of the meta, but we're getting Cthulhu, so I mean, but once Cthulhu comes down, it's pretty much GG anyway, so I don't know. I honestly think that this change is good, but I don't think it's going to happen in this way. But I agree, it's thematically correct. Alright, Ragnaros Firelord goes up to 9 and... Really? So, let me see if I got this straight. Turn 9, right? Let's say I went second. Okay, so my turn 9, I play Ragnaros. Your turn 10, as you went first, you get to play Cthulhu. How shitty do I fucking feel? Pretty fucking shitty. I don't really like this, because there's been many a times where that extra little mana cushion has allowed me to push for lethal. And here, I kind of feel like this change isn't really going to be overly good for the Hearthstone meta. I really don't feel it's all that great. Alright, Molten Giant. Okay, so now you have to be at 8 life? I'm okay with that. Alright. Sea Giant. I'm okay with that too, because the more recent versions of the Zoo decks use this guy a little too frequently, and I think just a little bit of curving would definitely be apropos there. So I agree with that. And that's all the cards. That's all the cards from RDU. Now, speaking as somebody who's designed cards for fan fiction and has taken a lot of time and you know, figuring out how Blizzard does their scaling and how Blizzard does their balancing and where they value certain things and how that changes somewhat when it comes to class cards and how there's kind of like bandwidth per class of how you can, you know, flow within there. And which, by the way, that was not an overnight process. That literally took me and Nox like weeks to figure the fuck out. Literally took us weeks to finally like nail it all down. I will say that some of these changes are good. I will agree, they are good. Some of them are not. Some of them are very bad. And now, I'm not saying that this is what he's doing, but it almost appears, okay, this is my opinion, my speculation here, it almost appears as if he was basing some of these designs off of a preferential deck, i.e. to make one deck a little bit better against the ones that it suffers a little bit too. I don't agree. That is not how you create health in a meta, alright? You cannot have one deck that beats them all. I'm sorry. No, Zoo will not do that anymore. So I do kind of feel like that this could use a little bit more refinement. It's not bad, alright? Please, don't mistake me here. I think it's actually relatively good. It shows a lot of initiative. It shows a lot of thought. But I do think some of these changes are kind of knee-jerk reaction. They're made without seeing the rest of the force, so to speak. And what I mean by this is that these changes, while on paper might look good, you have to look and see what's going to happen to the rest of the meta when this happens, where the power shifts are going to rely. And what I see here is these changes, if all of them were to go through, what you would end up seeing happening is most of the control decks would shrink down to a lot, by the way, and what you would get is mostly a Zoo-dominant meta. I'm sorry, Zoo's already pretty fucking coin flippy. You're telling me you want this game to be even more fucking coin flippy? I don't fucking think so. So I don't agree with all these changes. Some of them I do agree with, but I would much rather support diversity in meta versus homogenization, which is what it kind of almost feels like he's doing here by changing some things to remove certain uniqueness within the meta that we have now and basically homogenizing all the play down to one basic type. Now, that's my take on this. I might be wrong. I might be seeing it differently, alright? So please, don't flip your shit here, alright? Now, RDU, you know I love you. I do. So please take this as constructive criticism, not as any kind of insult or anything of that nature, sir. But I don't know, man. I do think it's really cool. I like what you did with a lot of this stuff, but I think some of it might need to go back to the drawing board for a little bit more tweaking. But anyway, so that's all for this review of RDU's standard suggestions. That was actually kind of interesting. It almost makes me want to do my own. Oh wait, I think I have an idea. Anyway, until next time, it's Shiv saying, stay safe, have fun, and may RNGesus bless you. Peace.